You've been a part of so many fantastic projects. What is your process like when you're deciding what you want to be involved in? What was it about James's script and this character in particular that resonated with you?
I just love telling great stories that I think people need to hear. And these independent films are always my favorite. It's about the story. There's not necessarily the funds to do a whole bunch of explosions and action, but it gets down to the nitty gritty of the people in the story. And just right away, I read James's script, Breakwater, and I thought, man, this Dovey character is not one I've done before.
Mhm.
Seems like there's a little bit of a challenge there for me, which I always enjoy. Um, and I love his arc and what he goes through and who he becomes. And the story is fun. And I love the ending. And I don't want to give it away right now, but I really appreciate how James brought it all together. It's such smart writing by him as well.
Yeah.
You could tell that he really took his time. There's a lot of neat through lines that we see, like, oh, that came back. He can hold his breath. And
Mm.
don't want to give away plot again, but yeah, it definitely stood out to me as this really strong script, and a chance for me to play a character I hadn't played before, flex my acting muscles, and to get after it. So yeah,
Yeah.
the rest was history.
Speaking of flexing those acting muscles, there's a lot of vulnerability that you have to tap into for your character as he tries to reintegrate himself into society and all that trauma that he's experienced from his time in jail, which you brought so much depth and sensitivity to. How did you create the space for yourself to dive into those emotions, especially because there's so many questions about whether or not he deserved to be in jail in the first place?
Definitely. Well, I really needed to, for myself, chatting with James, and I gathered information from him, and then needed to create that backstory for myself and make that really clear of what happened, why was I in prison, um, and then from there, I spent a lot of time actually in my basement,
Mm,
alone, where I would just hang out and sit with my journal, my Dovey journal, and sit with nothing to do for a few hours, just because I thought, hey, this guy's in jail. He's sitting there. There's nothing to do. What's he thinking about? Who's he thinking about? What is he writing about when he's writing? So to just kind of try and not go full board and lock myself in prison, but to give myself that time to let it breathe and sink in and really try and get into Dovey's head and where
mhm.
I found that really beneficial. And then, of course, we got to shoot in a real prison, which was
Yeah.
it had shut down, I believe, a year prior to us filming there. So that helped a lot as well because we started there too, which was great because that really helped set me up for the whole film. So it was great that we got to shoot in order that way because I got to go around to different cells and just sit in them, read the
Mm.
writing scribbled on the wall. There was magazines left, pictures still up in some of them, just to try and really understand what these guys were feeling like, what they were going through, and yeah, what their day to day was like.
Perfect segue to this next question, but there's always this commitment that you bring to all of your characters. Was the accent a choice that you made creatively with Debbie, or was that originally on the page? And can you walk us through a little bit about your character development process? What were other aspects of him that you wanted to help elevate after you got cast?
Yeah, no, I don't remember if they even asked for an accent. I think they might have just said general American, but for
Mm,
me, I was like, well, no, he's a little fisherman kid
yeah.
from the coast, in a small town. He's going to have an accent, and it helped as well knowing that my the JD Evermore would be playing my father, and I know he has an accent too, a Southern accent. So, and then for me, it was really just trying to figure out who Dovey is and where his energy sits inside of him, and then trying to find that vocal placement for him, and then just really trying to harness it from there. Once I had found where that sits, um, doing little tweaks with my wife, who's from Alabama, which always helps
Mm.
me. But yeah, that's really how I got into the whole to the his voice.
Great answer. During his time in jail, he finds a mentor in Ray. Who were the people in your own life who've influenced your journey as a storyteller and artist? And did you channel any of them into the relationship and dynamic between your character and Ray?
Yeah, my brother has always been the closest thing I've had to a dad growing up.
Mm,
And he's my big brother. He's 7 years older than me. And I have always really looked up to him, and I've always really appreciated his wisdom and his advice, um, and that's I kind of felt that a little bit with the relationship with Ray in prison. You know, he was a little bit that was a little similar to like me and my brother, where I found like Ray kind of is my quasi dad in the story.
Yeah.
You know, probably in my father in the story, he was locked up before I've been gone, so we didn't have necessarily a ton of time together either yet. Um, so I really tried to feed off of Dermot, and he's so great. I'm so lucky to have such an awesome castmate. He's such a blast to work with, and he's so good at what he does. So he was giving me tons, and that really helped me feed off of that.
The chemistry between the entire cast is so electric on screen. I know you didn't have a huge amount of time to bond. How were you able to still bring those different dynamics to life? What was your kind of your favorite behind the scenes moment?
Man, there were so many. You know, the beauty of Breakwater was just that everybody was there for the right reasons. Everybody wanted to be there to tell this great story that James had put together. From our producer, Matt Paul, DP, Kai Kraus, you know, to Alyssa, myself, Dermot, all of our other supporting cast, everybody really showed up and everybody wanted to be there, which was very evident. And it's really nice to work in an environment with people who are doing what they enjoy doing and what they're great at doing. And we were really blessed in this with this script and this production to have such a committed, talented team to come together here.
Yeah, I feel like you each help elevate each other's performances.
Absolutely.
You touched upon this already, but you shot all of this on location. How helpful is that for you as an actor as you're stepping into this character to bring that authenticity as opposed to working on maybe on a soundstage or with green screen?
Huge, huge. I think that's something in a lot of independent film that's just beautiful is that you're often shooting on location. And the feeling of being inside of a real prison, you walk in the door and you can feel that energy on you,
Mm.
you know, that heaviness. And that's a lot different than when you have to create that and you have to remind yourself of what it would feel like to be in these different settings when you're shooting on a sound stage. So it's almost like the beauty of shooting on location is that it's like you're getting to take out a little bit of the acting and just getting to be a little
Mm.
because you're really there. You're really in the setting. You're really on the fishing boat, you know, pulling up a crab trap, whatever it is. It's so much easier when you're doing it for real.
The cinematography in this film is breathtaking. And, without giving any spoilers, that underwater sequence that happens at the end is so gripping to watch. And I imagine there's so many different moving pieces from the emotions that you have to bring to that scene, plus the choreography involved. And then you add in the fact that you're also underwater. What was the preparation like getting ready for that moment in the film? And what was your reaction when you finally saw the final cut?
Oh man, it was I can remember when I first read it, I was thinking like, oh wow, that's really cool. I wonder what camera tricks we'll have to do this one. But there were no tricks. We were just in there for real, right in the water with each other. And you know, the tough part was, you know, one of them is that you have your clothes on in the pool
Mm.
and you're trying to tell the story. So you need to keep your eyes open and you got to stay in that zone as well as, you know, physically looking after yourself and making sure you're getting out of the water in time. But we had such a great team around us with James. He's so calm and collected and he's so intelligent. His vision is so clear that it makes it very easy when we're, you know, for instance, going to a day where we're shooting that underwater stuff. He's got his board with him. He knows the shots that he wants, the angles he's looking for. He's prepared. It makes us feel a lot more at ease too to play with inside what we got because we know he's got it all sorted out. I don't got to worry about that stuff. I just got to go do my job, do my thing in the pool, and I thought it came out really cool. I think I love that sequence. I kind of feel like I've checked it now, and it's like don't need to do another pool scene.
I literally gasped watching what happens in that scene. And James wrote and directed Breakwater. Is the filming experience different when the person who's created this universe and these characters is also at the helm directing? What was that collaboration like?
Yeah, I love working with writer directors because you know you got one person to go for all your
Mm,
questions, and they definitely know the answer. They're not trying to play middleman at all for somebody else. So it's pretty cool just to be able to go straight to the source, know that he knows the story better than anyone, and he has the vision for his, being the director. So it's pretty nice when you're in those situations. As well as the fact that we're lucky that James, being a writer director, is actually uh, he's very easy to work with, and he wanted to hear our input coming from the character side, because that's, I'm sure it's tough for him at times, to be in everybody's head. So sometimes you got to rely on the person who's just focusing on that one person. And he was so open and receptive to receiving any kind of ideas we had as well. So it was nice. It was such a collaboration, which was really
yeah.
fun. It made it fun doing it.
You've also worked on projects of all sizes, and you already touched upon this, but what is it about independent filmmaking that excites you as a creative?
I just think they're the best stories. I think that they're the stories that we all need to be listening to. And because hopefully a lot of them can teach us something, or there's something
Mm.
positive we can take out of it for our own lives. Um, and so I just think that that's just where my heart sits with independent film. It's my favorite kind of art. It's about the characters and it's about the story, number one. Those two things at the top, that really makes it for me. Great characters and a great story.
And the film has made its way around the festival circuit. It's been incredibly well received. What do you think is resonating most with them, and what do you hope they take away?
I think that it's just such a unique spin on an older genre with a ending that's very appeasing to the audience, which
Mm.
I really appreciated the ending. And I don't want to give it away, but in nowadays, I find that there's a lot of dark out there, and the world can be quite heavy. There's been some tough years for everybody recently, pandemics, strikes, whatever it may be. So it's nice to go to a theater and to watch a fun show that has a uplifting finish. You know, I really appreciated that aspect of James' storytelling, and that really connected with me in the way I want to tell stories too.
Yeah, I think you've never been better. With the film coming out this week, is there a scene outside of the water seat that you're most excited for audiences to see?
Most excited for outside, oh, the water one, that was the easy one for sure. You got me there. That whole sequence above on the boat and then
Yeah.
below, I loved all that stuff. It was so fun. Um, but let's see what else. What would I want them to see? It's hard to pick one because there's so many scenes that really I had such a great time doing. Um, you know what? I love the date scene with myself and Alyssa Goss. I loved working with Alyssa as well as Dermot. I loved everybody you got to work with on this film. We were so fortunate. But I think Alyssa and I had a lot of fun that night working on that.
Mm.
This at the can't remember what it's called, something dockside. But yeah, we had a lot of fun filming that night, and I was really happy with how it came out and how the chemistry worked between us. And yeah, so I hope that shines through to everybody else as well that watches.
Yeah, it definitely will. I got one final question for you. You've done so much already in your career. What's next and what's left on that bucket list?
Oh man, the bucket list is long. I got a lot to check out, which is great. But what's next for me? If I could choose, I would love to go back and do another fight film.
Mm,
I love an indie fight film. Well, it doesn't have to be, but a fight film with a great story. That was what we had in Embattled, which I loved so much,
yeah.
was it wasn't just, about fighting. There was great character drama that also happened to revolve around the world of fighting in the sport. I just love that sport, whether it comes to MMA or boxing. I love it. So I'd love to tell another MMA or boxing story. Yeah.
I think it's a great playground for you to play in, and hopefully you'll direct and produce and write again in the future, which would be
That's
super
what I'm
cool.
talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Absolutely. I love writing, and I'd love to direct. That's definitely high on my bucket list.